I think it's time to get started. I'm so happy to have today a friend and one of the most impressive minds and thinkers I've met in the past 10 years. I think you are seen thinkers with topics that we have discussed in this call: strategy, leadership, crisis, but there's very few that go to the edges of thinking and humans, and that's why I'm a big admirer of Yuri, the work he does, the thinking he puts together, the connection with the spiritual, the mind, the good of people. He was very innovative and successful with his book Exponential Organization a few years ago. He's working on the new one. So I can't wait to read it. He's a friend. He's a part of Thinkers 50. We meet in conferences, and he just, the most different speak is always Yuri. He comes dressed like a DJ, and I love his, the way he approached life, the things that he does. So I'm really happy to have you today, Yuri, with us. You see, this is a family. We meet every Thursday for learning from people like you. Thank you so much for the time to just share a bit what you're working, Yuri. And then you'll see this team of people, they have lots of questions. So they'll come up on the screen, they'll make your question. We'll try to get as many questions as possible. So try to be succinct, but thank you, Yuri, for being here, and welcome. The floor is yours. Let me just start. Can you just tell about yourself, Yuri? What did you want to be when you were a kid? When you were at high school, did you want to be a thinker like you are today?
That's a good question. The answer is no. I used to fish a lot between 7 and 13. In between, I discovered the Commodore 64.
Wow.
I was addicted in 84, right, until 90. I played it like a few hours a day or more in the weekend. So I was also trading back then the latest software games using 400 baud or 800 baud modems, very slow. So I learned to trade. I learned to speak English early on, to think globally then, and to write. Actually, I was already a writer, an author, because I was part of, they call it demo groups, right? So they created these beautiful demos and then with a scroll line, and I was already a writer back then. So yeah, the seeds were already there, but I had no idea what to do.
And how did you, what was your steps, and how do you got involved with Singularity University, exponential concepts? What were your journey there?
Yeah, so I knew about Verne Vinci probably, it was in the 90s, right, with Wired magazine, and he wrote this piece about singularity in 1993. Before Ray Kurzweil, then I read the book by Ray Kurzweil, The Singularity is Near, and I met Ray Kurzweil and Verne Vinci, both. It was a mind-blowing experience. In 2008 at the Singularity Summit, I spoke with them like for more than an hour in the evening, so the three of us. And then I realized, okay, boom, this is it. And then Singularity University was launched the year after. I couldn't attend the first session because I was in a big project back then. So I joined the second group in 2010. It was a life transformative experience because back then it was almost like a 2-week experience. So now it's like 1 week. So I was lucky. And also the speakers were, I would say, the faculty was at the higher level back then.
Can you explain briefly what Singularity University stands for, or the philosophy, just for those who don't?
Yeah, so Singularity University is basically an educational or training institute or think tank, innovation hub, hotspot for exponential technologies and how they are able to transform our world. our societies, economies, business models, organizations, teams, ourselves. So it's the key focus is on technology, emerging technologies, and what the impact is on society, organizations, and individuals.
And can you share a bit on what came out from there, or also linked to your book? What were the key concepts that you brought forward? How you see these trends evolving?
Yeah, so it helped me a lot because you get so many ideas from the top level people doing it, right? Or in the past, you go exponential yourself, right? And you have many ideas, insights, possibilities, opportunities. So it helped me to get an overview, deeper insight, more perspective. Also deep dives in technology. I was already doing a lot of reading in terms of biotech and nanotech, Eric Drexler in the 90s, right? In neuroscience, is consciousness, right? Daniel Dennett in the 90s as well. So I was already informed, but the convergence of all these technology, that's the magic, the overview and the convergence. And then afterwards, I wrote the book Exponential Organizations, which is easy when you know about technologies, right? The technological impact on organizations. It became a global bestseller. I think now it's top 10 business book of all times in terms of sales. But I learned that there's something missing, right, at Singularity University, also in my book, Exponential Organizations, and that's more the human side, right, the ethical part, consciousness, right, the purpose, the soft factors of as a leader, organization, or prime minister, or whatever, entrepreneur. And that's what I discovered afterwards in the last, let's say, 4 years.
So you worked with some governments and prime ministers. What kind of experience did you get there? What kind of advice?
Well, what did I learn there? Yeah. What did I learn? Well, basically, what you see with prime ministers is the same what you see with most CEOs, right? There are exceptional leaders, but it's a minority. Even today, I would say globally, let's say 10, 20%, maybe 30% if you're lucky. The other leaders, or prime ministers, they lack awareness, or I call it systemic thinking and doing, holism, inclusiveness, and being truly purpose-driven, right? So that's what I noticed. So that's why I'm writing a second book and do all the movements that I created in the last few years, right? I talked to you about it, about social cohesion, ecological inclusiveness, higher level of consciousness, self-awareness. That's basically a result of what I noticed in these leaders, right? And this applies to prime ministers and CEOs, right? So that means in practice, they have a lack of awareness of complex systems, or antifragility, the works of Nassim Taleb, right? They think in normal distributions in risk management, classic risk management. They have no clue about black swan events like the pandemic right now, or white swans. But it's basically also the usage of outdated thinking and decision-making models, right? It's or what I also noticed, they're very much left brain, right? It's a system engineering approach, MBA-like thinking, and that's of course still important, right? But I believe strongly we need to focus more also within our leaders on the right brain skill sets, right? So love, empathy, compassion, imagination, intercultural sensitivity and awareness, right? Design, beauty, self-awareness, finding your own passion and purpose in life, your ikigai, also as a leader, how to reinvent your purpose in life, right? What are the tools, alignment techniques, right? What I realize right now while talking, they never talked about ancient cultures, right? Or the wisdom of ancient cultures. And that surprised me afterwards, because I found a lot of wisdom there, right? The Incas or the other indigenous cultures globally, which I encountered myself, or to a certain degree in the last 4 or 5 years. So, and I was like, that's strange. So I realized we are way too much in the mind, and within the mind, we are too much left brain, right? While we ignore the heart, the soul, the body, and the right brain skill sets. So we have an outdated, or we, let's say also the leaders I'm talking about, they have a very fragmented or small, or let's say outdated self view and other view and view on the world, right? Basically, what does ecological inclusiveness mean, right? What does social cohesion mean at the cellular level, right? Not thinking about it, but really getting it. And that's the shifts I see right now in leadership. Big shift.
And let me go back to technology before we go into the human, Yuri. In terms of technology, how do you see this? We had people talking about artificial intelligence in one of the session. Yeah, how do you see technology evolving, and will it be in our favor to do a better world, to create, or will be against us and destroy jobs? And how do you see that, the evolution since you joined Singularity University, the past years and the next years to come, before we go into the person part?
Yeah. Well, of course, you have to make a distinction between AI and algorithms and machine and deep learning. But let's talk about deep learning, right? That's the most advanced form. First of all, what's on the edge? What's happening right now, right? Actually, I had a session this morning, 3 top level people on AI talking about the cutting edge, and it's in line with what I had in my mind. So we move from deep learning to bio-inspired deep learning. So we include more the principles of nature in the algorithms that we are using to make them more effective, more fluid, more effective. There's also a tendency to include deep learning, or let's say bottom-up, pattern recognition with top-down mechanisms like the taxonomies, right? So there's the symbolic school and the deep learning school are now converging again. That's a very interesting field. So that means real understanding of concepts, right? Semantics, including those in AI and deep learning. That's a fundamental shift as well. There's a lot of insights from psychology and neurology, neuroscience into the AI algorithms as well. And finally, I would say the rise of quantum simulations and also quantum AI, because people don't realize that's already happening in China. I know it's true. So AI customized on quantum chips, quantum computing, it's already here. That's also a big game changer because they can analyze way more data. We move away from big data to huge data to, to deal with the hardest problems in life, right? Space exploration, climate research, climate solutions, biomedical breakthroughs, inventions, personalized drug development, the big, hard, huge data problems, right? So these are let's say the cutting edge in terms of algorithms, AI, machine and deep learning, and in terms of work and humanity. I would say that your left brain as a human being becomes less important, right? Because AI can do it more effectively and more efficiently. So diagnostics, analysis, memory, speed, routine-based stuff, left brain will be mostly done by technology. So we have to amplify our right brain skill sets. I talked about that before. That means emotional intelligence, relational intelligence, social intelligence, spiritual intelligence, and physical intelligence. So more detail, imagination, curiosity, collaboration, empathy, love, compassion, all the stuff I talked about. Like 40 competencies, right, in my new book. So that becomes important. So, and the fun part is that it's more fun to explore and more human to explore those qualities, right? It makes our lives way more interesting, productive, happy, social, constructive, creative, interesting in some. Impact of AI will be a lot of dislocation of jobs. Yes, the numbers differ, but I believe McKinsey, 60% of the jobs will be impacted by 10%, and sometimes 100%. So it's, let's say, on average, 30 to 40%. The good news is, like Tim O'Reilly says, and many other people, and Kevin Kelly, among others, and I think it makes sense because I live already in this new world. There will be a lot of new jobs also because of AI, right? You have now AI artists, also two friends of mine, Pinar and Edwin Jongsma. They create amazing art and paintings driven by AI or AI-driven music or whatever, right? Books or film scripts, right? It's already here for quite a few years. This becomes a booming market. You can imagine that you can basically use AI for all professions, right? So it augments us. If you step into that field, then you have more roles and more jobs and more value. But also new jobs, totally new jobs emerge because AI allows us to become more human. We can outsource the dull stuff. So let's say the upper chains of Maslow, the pyramids, become more important. So think about transformation work or spiritual journeys that becomes massive, right? Self-awareness, education at a higher level, meditation, all these things that they become, or personal lifestyle coaches, whatever, right? That all these things become more important as a result of AI, because we have more time. We need to up our food chain, right? Maslow.
Yeah. I was thinking when you were talking, Jerry, just a thought. Left brain is taking, there will be no left brain in humans in 50 years. It will be a computer there. How will this reflect organizations? I'm thinking about, you talk McKinsey, this is a left brain organization. It's just left brain. They will not exist. How can organizations in the future take a right brain approach? How will it look like? And yeah, just a thought that came to mind is McKinsey will not exist because it's just left brain.
Well, I have to counter your point. I understand your perspective, but I know them quite well.
Yeah.
Both Dominique was a big fan of the book, Exponential Organization, the previous global CEO.
Yeah.
He was open for this kind of thinking. He bought 15,000 books, by the way, of the old book. And Kevin, who is the new global CEO, which I will meet soon, is also quite open to this. Sorry?
No, that was, go ahead, sorry.
Should I repeat or?
No, you were talking about the new CEO of
Kevin. Anyway, so they are changing, right? It's going to be an interesting cultural change. I agree with you, but they are already on this path. I know from inside out. So I do believe that, yeah, so the question is about McKinsey specifically, or do you want to talk about
organizations in the future? How are they going to look like, and what products or services are they going to sell or provide?
Yeah, I have to be a little bit mindful here because I have NDAs, but as I told you before, let's do it very abstractly.
Yes.
Yeah, so I believe that in the next 10 years, if you don't have a real purpose as an organization within an ecosystem, so not just a company, but all the different organizations, large and small, in your ecosystem, if they don't embody the purpose at the heart and soul level, or one particular purpose, or maybe a few, you will be gone. It's the next 10 years will be like the last 50 years in terms of changes in organizations. I truly believe that. I see it already, by the way. And Corona is just a trigger moment, right? To boost the transition towards the systemic transformation of the world, right? And I expect the big shift to happen in the next 5 years. This is just, what we see now is just weak signals, right? It will be more massive dislocations going forward, in my view.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Because we have exponential technologies, or even quantum speed, because quantum is exponential on top of exponential. So that's increasing the speed even more. So that's one piece, how to deal with that in an ethical way, social way. And then we have institutions who are 200 years old, right? Healthcare, education, government, legal, security, what have you. Sometimes even older. And you have human nature, which, let's say, the reptile brain part of it, or the amygdala, is triggered a lot because people are in crisis, right? At many different levels. So how to synthesize, right, align these three layers? That's going to be a critical question also for organizations, right? And I expect organizations who will flourish, they understand technology, they use technology to manifest their dreams, their purposes, in an open, transparent, and ethical way. with ecosystems, not just platforms that's override or organizations, pipelines. That's going to be less important over time, in my view. And also, the work becomes way more human, right? That's interesting. You can see all these organizations already globally today, the leaders, the award-winning companies, the best workplaces to work for or in. You don't have to sell out as an employee. You can be fully human, right? All your qualities, all your dispositions, idiosyncrasies, right? It becomes more human in a sense. That's also a challenge, by the way, because you have unity and diversity, but it moves more towards diversity. Of course, also the gender, the ethnicities, the ages, right? In my previous we talked about that already, right? Diversity is top priority. And that became successful. So we are very happy about it. That becomes even more important, but it goes beyond that, right? The next step is that, okay, organizations are not a rational technocratic system, right? That's bullshit. It's not about transaction costs, economics, and a resource-based view of the firm, right? In my new book, I use 25 perspectives on organizations, right? And it's more about learning, psychological, sociological, anthropological, very important in the future of organizations, right? Political, all the soft sciences, they all become more important in organizations. Why? We want to become, or we want to present ourselves as employees as full human beings, right? Not just 50% of our qualities or 10%. And we want to have self-management and self-organized teams because they are more human, right? We can be more effective, more productive, more happy, more social, more efficient, right? That's what I see already in the best organizations, mostly in startups, yes, because easier than no sunk cost, of course, a clean sheet. That's easy. But also some corporations are doing this. But it's a minority.
Yuri, one question. Oh, my son is here. Lucas.
Hi. You have a question?
Yeah, he has a question.
Okay, right. Let me hear it. Cool.
Yuri, I know you've gone through what you call repurposing your life and can you share that please with our friends here, because I think it's remarkable, and maybe we might need to go through those steps too at one point. So if you don't mind, open up on that point, and then I see there's already some questions.
Sure. I'll keep it short. So I did, my study is economics, strategic management, right? At Erasmus University in Rotterdam. Back then I was a crazy reader. I read all the classics, right? Charles Handy, Memon Prala, Porter, of course, Mintzberg, right? I read everything because I was super passionate about it. And you can see it in my previous and new book. So I did the rational part. I did it worked in the internet, 1994, 1995. Then mobile social, 2004. So always, let's say, as a pioneer, so to speak. And then I moved Singularity, 2008, wrote a book, 2012. And then after the book, I realized, okay, there's something bigger coming, right? Bigger than Singularity or exponential organizations. I felt that intuitively. And also I worked very hard because I had 2 startups and 300 keynotes a year, 50 different countries now, like maybe some of you as well. So it's crazy life. I needed time to decompress. So what I did, I went to Peru, India, other places for spiritual journeys, right? Might sound crazy. It's a bit, I did Burning Man like 9 years ago, zero gravity because of NASA and Peter Diamandis. I could fly for 8 minutes in Rio, no gravity. So these experiences opened me up to do more bolder things. So, right, so I did the plant medicine course in Peru, and in India I walked around a river for a week. There was no bed, no shower, no food, no shoes. Meditate 5 times a day in 2 ashrams, right? And so it's basically what happens. You walk into your unconscious, right? Into your ikigai, your purpose in life. That was the best decision in my whole life, but that was a few years ago. Because I learned more in 1 week than 30 years before combined, right? About myself and the future and what is a human being and nature and how to talk to nature, connect to nature, synchronicities, serendipity, alignment techniques, right? Like mind blowing and all organic, no substances, whatever, all very natural. So, and actually I'm doing this again next month in Rome. So every year I'll do these walks, right, for 1 week, 220 kilometers by foot, small groups, 13 people, that's it. And just meditate, and that's it, asceticism. So it's based on mysticism, so it changed me a lot. And I learned more about the future. I talk about the age of consciousness. It used to be have the age of information, now we have the age of intelligence, with AI. That's over, right? It's all about the age of consciousness. Self-awareness is a better word, or alignment techniques. And it's of course a meme right now. It's a container jargon concept, but there's real substance there, right? So I changed my life, and as a result of that, I created a social cohesion movement 3 years ago in Holland with the top level politicians and CEOs of the largest companies to retrain 1 million people in the next 10 years in Holland. That's one initiative. Second is I became a DJ 18 months ago. I play across the world, also online now, of course. You can check it out. It's my biggest passion, of course, since when I was 15 years old. So I do it right now. It's fun. And also I created a movement for ecological inclusiveness and nature, higher level of awareness. It's called Conscious Learning Tribe. And also I advise the Dutch government now in a breakout team. It's a think tank or ecosystem of 25 thinkers and doers to advise the government for the pandemic, right? Exit strategy, next second wave, and a post-corona vision of Dutch society. So yeah, and that's it. So, and basically, yeah, I try to always look for the edges, right? What's on the edge now? I work for the World Economic Forum. There's the Quantum Technologies Group, Future Council. I'm involved there now for 3 years almost. Yeah, this is the third year. So you meet all the quantum computing and quantum algorithm experts in the world, so IBM, Google, NASA, and China, of course. That's mind-blowing because quantum will become the future, in my view. It will define us to a certain degree. So that's in short, yeah. So I opened my box. There is no box, right?
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. It's just, but I think what you're sharing is that it's good to experiment and move out of the comfort zone and try these more spiritual journeys. And I'm sure there's no one single path, but it's more the exploration that helps you renew. I love the disc jockey. I'm going to share your latest, which I love and I hear very often with the group. But let me go now to the questions. I'll pass it to James in London. Antoine, you have a question. Try to be brief, and Yuri, if you can be succinct, so that we can get, there's quite, a lot of questions already.
Okay. I'll keep it quick.
Hey, Yuri.
Hi.
If politicians aren't very good at systems thinking, which I would wholeheartedly agree, and you could say that was why we've got Brexit and Trump for two small disruptive activities. What do you see as the solution being, apart from shooting them all?
Well, I don't believe in violence. In the sense, I'm more like try to be like Gandhi, Martin Luther King. I think we're examples in many ways. I would say what I'm doing is a piece of the solution, like awareness, spread the word, social media, whatever, where you're speaking, books, publishing, music. There's also a message there, of course. It's about purpose and self-healing, in my view, and a real connectivity. So it's about bottom-up alignment, collaboration. I'm doing this as well, right? So all these memes, there are amazing groups globally, right? They are now interconnecting because they realize they have to collaborate. We have to collaborate because we don't have time, right? We have to collaborate beyond the ego, beyond self-interest to make this work. So the bottom-up groundswell is intensifying. Then you have the media and own media or the mainstream media to influence. That's also happening to a certain degree. And create our own leaders and alternatives and parties, right? If you don't like tech platforms, now create blockchain alternatives. It's already happening, small scale. If you don't like one-sided superficial politicians, create your own party. That's also happening. And some good examples, some bad, of course, but I think it's regulation, it's vote with your feet, it's alignment, it's collaboration, it's media, it's everything combined. Like any revolution, right? Like in the 1850s, when we had the Industrial Revolution, right? There was also this build-up. And yeah, it's all about tipping points, right? Complexity science, now you talked about yourself, systemic thinking. The tipping point is coming in the next 5 years, 100%. By the way, this is confirmed by most futurologists, right, or futurists.
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting because I'm grey and I've seen lots of tipping points and we've kind of gone past them. In fact, Mike Malone, who contributed on your book, I know Leif Edvinson, intellectual capital seemed like a great thing, but it's been ridden over like a steamroller. So it'd be interesting to see. But thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Antoine. And then Didier, you have a couple questions.
No, I'll move on to DJ. I just heard when Yuri was speaking, I heard like the fire department coming, the ambulance coming, the police coming. So I was like, hey, Yuri, just for as Dutchies under each other, start to tend in the fik. So that was kind of a. Yeah, okay. But it's really good. It's really fun to see that from because we were both in the same team, the Commodore 64 demo scene, you know, building the demos, writing the stuff. So we probably met while we were younger and looking much more handsome than we both do now. But it's really.
I was in Venlo. I was in Venlo a lot. I was in
Eindhoven at the Commodore 64 swapping parties. You know them, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's amazing.
So we know each other, 100%.
Cool.
Yeah. And that was really good to see that you completely went on a completely different journey. Actually elaborated on what that experience at that point. Definitely need to get your book. So the only stupid thing I have was the fire department I heard in the background. So move on to DJ.
Actually, what's funny in my book, a new book, I write about this a lot, but because all is one, right? Everything you experience is interconnected, but you only see it when you do it. So, for example, DJing used to be very complicated in the technical sense, that 30 years ago. Now it's all about the emotional, spiritual, social, the storytelling and purpose layers, right? The authenticity of it and the innovation. So it's way more complicated to become a successful DJ because you have to tick all the boxes. While the technical part is super easy now, right?
That's true. It explains why the Aviciis of this world don't make it, and you know, the hardwells have to stop for a while.
But yeah, exactly. And what most importantly for us in organizations and leaders, I talk with CFOs and CLOs. I told them, you are a DJ. They're like, what are you talking about? Well, all the dull stuff, the technical stuff, you can outsource to blockchain, AI, and sensors, right, going forward. And your work becomes more human, more creative, more social, more empathetic, right, more flexible, adaptive, the whole thing, more purpose-driven, most importantly. So they are just like the DJs scaling up. And then they get it. Okay, it makes sense, right? So all these insights horizontally across domains are important. And as Antonio said, if you have out of comfort zone experiences in your life, of course, everybody says you're crazy, right, at first. But the value, with hindsight, think about the amazing talk by Steve Jobs at Stanford 2005, right, is you can only connect the dots afterwards. But because you have those very spread out dots, when you synthesize it, your life goes like bomb, exponential, right? Yeah. So I highly recommend to do those things yourself in a calculated way, of course, because that's the future, right? It's all about imagination. Right? That's the key capability going forward. You can only be imaginative when you do crazy things in a calculated way.
I love it. I think, I love it. And I have a question here from Didier from the island. Still there?
Should I speak? Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Yuri. Thank you for your talks. There are two sides of my question. Number one, the forecast you did, I don't remember, 10 or 20 years ago about exponentiality is true today. And the first word it's mentioned by someone else is that he's the house under fire, in fire. And we have the GAFA that have huge power, huge finance power, and not only in a very, very few hands. And that's worrying everybody, I guess, around this table. And that's the first point. What do you think about that? Can we solve, will we solve somehow this kind of problems? And the second one is I'm very excited about the fact that you're mentioning the right side of the brain, because one of the company where I'm a small shareholders, Neosperience, has been involved in pioneering what we call empathy in technology since the last at least 5 years and we believe a lot about helping our clients, the small corporates and retailers, whatever it is, in facing the extra, the huge power of Amazon and this kind of marketplaces that are not really going that way today, because maybe this is the result of being too powerful. And we believe we can help companies to keep direct contact, take advantage of Amazon and all these marketplaces, but keep direct contact with their clients using the right instrument, the right tools, taking advantage of AI, deep learning, whatever you call them, in helping the right side of their brain and of their computers and
what is your question?
Technology. What do you think about those 2 points, about the GAFA power and can we make it with the empathy in technology, if you have heard about what we are doing?
Yeah, so the first part, I think it's easier to answer. So right now you have the hearings, right, in the US, and also the checks by the EU in terms of regulation. Maybe they will be split up, maybe not. I don't think it's not an easy topic, right? Because you have the geopolitical dimension. Now, if you split up the companies, then you still have China, right? And they probably won't be split up. So that's one piece. Second, yeah, I think the way going forward, also at the web, we talk about this in the last 2 years at the Digital Platforms and Ecosystems Future Council. I think the way to navigate this is to have stronger regulation to make sure that the consumer, the employees, the competitors, and society at large are protected. So more scrutiny, open standards, data portability, how to deal with privacy, security, discrimination, and access in a more ethical way, more open and transparent way, controlled fashion by independent people who have knowledge, of course, because there's a lack of knowledge as well sometimes in the government to check these companies. See the hearings today or yesterday. So that's a piece of it. I used to think like 100 years ago, right, with robber barons, right, and let's say the big multinationals in the US, right, oil companies, financial, blah, blah, they were split up, right, after, it was the same evolution, right? So, but the difference is now we have digital companies instead of physical or analog companies 200 years ago, with network effects, with winner-takes-all market effects, right, driving a monopoly, and lock-in effects as a result. And so the migration paths, or let's say, they are less easy to tackle. So they are two different apples and pears, I would say. So how to deal with that in terms of regulation? I think then you have to think about how to disrupt the network effects in a legal way using regulations. I don't know the answer yet, but there's something there, right? In terms of the openness of sharing, to avoid lock-ins and to bring along your network from Facebook to other alternatives, blockchain-based or maybe normal organizations, right? I think that there is the value. And your second point.
Let me move to the next question.
Yeah, the second point was about empathy in technology. I think it goes in the direction of your next book, and the helping small companies or retailers, any players in the marketplace is to resist what we call Amazonizations of their business. So survive in this environment, which is losing a lot of pieces.
you see blockchain-based alternatives emerging, right? It takes longer, but it will flourish to a certain degree in the next 3-5 years, in my view.
Yeah.
After dealing with a lot of issues right now. And second is the new collectives, right? People are from the bottom up creating new collectives to collaborate, to have a stronger stance towards these tech platforms to create alternatives themselves, right? Globally, or first locally and then globally. That's also what I see. And you can also, I believe that if you think you are fully dependent on tech platforms, then you are, but you aren't, right? It's just, yeah, it's a lack of self-awareness, right? You just think, okay, I'm dependent. That's not true, right? You have to think in a more imaginative way. And a good product, whatever you are doing, will sell itself. Maybe slower, avoiding these tech platforms, but when you're really good, it will go word of mouth and go viral. But slower, but still. So it's all about your own expectations. What do you want in life, in business? How fast? Do you want to sell out, like Faust, or do you want to stay true to yourself, right? That's also important. Are there alternatives? Can you make them scale? I think that's what's happening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a request from Paula. She needs to leave for something. So Paula, and then I'll move to Rosina, and then Mark.
Thank you, gentlemen, and Rosina. I'm in the hospital right now. I have to go for an appointment. So I just wanted to ask this question because I think it might be something that Yuri might want to discuss. So you mentioned the conscious learning tribe, Yuri. How does this connect with the exponential technology that you work with in the world and that you see is developing in the world? And then how does this fit with your views on anti-fragility, this connection with what you're developing through the conscious learning tribe and then this piece of the intersection of exponential technology? How does that move forward the notion of anti-fragility that is being put out there for our resilience, or post-COVID resilience in the world?
Yeah, that's a very good question, like all questions. So I try to be concise. So we have learned now that efficiency driven by technology alone is not sufficient, right? We are not anti-fragile or resilient enough right now. So we move away from efficiency to anti-fragility because of the climate crisis. Not crisis coming. This is just an appetizer, so fasten our seatbelts, in my view. So all our systems have to become more anti-fragile, and technology is able to support that as well, not just efficiency. Because when you think about Taleb, right, and now I read all his works, and if you go to detail, anti-fragility, a piece of that is diversification, optionality, but also the usage of technology, automation, to become more anti-fragile. Think about healthcare. If we would have automated more processes, not all of the processes, but that's a few of the key processes, we would have had more resilience and anti-fragility. Because now the nurses became sick, right, in a lot of cases. If you have AI, instead of human input or output, it's more resilient, right? You have a lack of disruption. Less disruption. So that's I would say some exponential technologies are able to stimulate anti-fragile systems, organizations.
So how does the conscious learning tribe fit into all of that?
Yeah, the conscious learning tribe is just, in some, it's very broad. That's why I like it, but it's basically.
So do I.
So
they're interesting sessions. Yeah.
Thank you. We just started since April, every week or every 2 weeks now. We are about ecological inclusiveness, so nature is our guiding star. And we are about social inclusiveness, more than, let's say, today. I think it's a big problem as well. We all think that. And third is about to deal with these topics, ecological and social inclusiveness. You have to raise the level of awareness, self-awareness and consciousness. So these are the three main goals that we have. And we use technology in a new way, not like the technology saves the world and technology is the only thing. No, it's a big piece, but it's not the only piece, right? It's also about organizational, social, human innovation, not just technological innovation. But we need technological innovation to help heal the planet. It's a big piece of the solution. It's also part of the problem, by the way. What I see in some, it's also in my new book in more detail, a shift away from mechanistic technologies to living technologies. And living technologies are able to give back to nature. They are regenerative, right? They give back to nature. They are in line with the design principles of nature.
They're fractalized. So
Yeah,
they promote fractalization.
Yeah, so you can imagine, if you look at AI, you have mechanistic AI, that's the last few decades or 8 years with deep learning, with the breakthrough moment, 2012, that's now being replaced by bio-inspired evolutionary AI or deep learning. Right? So that's more human, more in line with the principles of nature. Living technologies are about being adaptive, flexible, organic, self-organized, right? Resilient, anti-fragile. So, and these are technologies like quantum technologies, right? I'm fully into this stuff for 5 years, but these are in line with the principles. Nature is quantum, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's a giant quantum computer, right? It's amazing.
Yeah, so the biomimicry is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
Yeah,
I'm hearing you.
Nanotechnology or pieces of that, and of course, bio-based design and photonics, right? Light, what's happening. It's amazing, right? So we need to move away from mechanistic technologies to living technologies and combine these and then create a better world.
And shifting our mindsets through the conscious learning tribe.
It's just a small, I don't think it's the biggest movement, but we are just a small player, right? We do have a contribution, and we will collaborate with all the key players in this domain, like May and Warrior and Wonderfruit and all the amazing festivals in the world. Because I see a festivalization of organizations, right? It's a big meme in my new book, because young people, now I'm young at heart still, I go to all these festivals, and the values in the festivals globally, they are now becoming a critical requirement for employees, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. So if you look at Tomorrowland, right, last weekend, they sold 1 million tickets for a virtual festival.
Yeah, I saw that.
Anyway, so to give you a sense, you have these Burning Man stuff and Wonderfruit and all these festivals. People want to live that life every second, also in organizations. So that alone will be a game changer in the next 10 years. Millennials and Gen Z, and they're also quite different, but also quite aligned in terms of expectations in workplaces. That will be the game changer.
That's great.
The festivals are a key part of this transformation, bottom up.
Well, diffusion of technology, as well as shifting mindsets in terms of how how people are to look at life and enjoying life and moving business as well as economies, and how economies are regenerative by using other types of models. But anyway, you've answered my question. Thank you so much. I have to get going. But do invite, do tell people about August the 2nd at the Conscious Learning Tribe, because that would be helpful if more people would attend.
Sure. Join us.
Here, Paula. Good luck in the hospital.
Thanks so much, guys. See you after the summer.
Hey.
Thanks.
And Conscious Learning Tribe, we'll share that later on as well, Yuri. If people want to join, I'd love to join too.
Cool. Any questions?
Yeah, there's a few questions, and I want to finish. Rosina, I'm sure she was very pleased to hear what you were talking about, the right range. So Rosina, and then Mark.
Thanks. I think in some ways, hi Yuri, you've probably answered it, but I was going to ask, do you think all sectors need to be redesigned systemically to reposition their value and purpose? And great to hear you're part of the Futures Council, because that's another big interest of mine, certainly with the people like Professor Sohail and Ayatollah and the futures thinking. So with all sectors, should they be reimagining also different futures and different scenarios? And really, I guess it relates to Paula's a couple of words that came up of resilience.
I agree. In different times and degrees, of course, it's all customized, but I agree, because the reason is not just technology, right? It's also in terms of the shift we see in values, right? I talk a lot to millennials and Gen Z globally, online, offline. It's going to change, right? Capitalism will change, democracy will change, organizations will change. We are witnessing systemic transformation of the world. In any systemic transformation in the world, always the why of everything is more important than the what and the how and the when and the who. So if you don't, so the why do we organize the way we organize healthcare? That's a joke, right? We have learned this now in the pandemic everywhere, globally. Also in Holland, right? Now they realize, oh, we have to reinvent the whole system, right? Black Ops, in my old book, right? That's now happening. The same applies to education, to organizations, to legal, to the government itself. We have to think about all these institutions, organizations from a clean sheet. Supported by a vision, imagination, and a purpose, and new technologies, living technologies. What are we able to do to organize in a boldly different fashion? That's now happening in all vertical markets as well, right? You see 10x now, even more sometimes, improvements by startups relative to incumbents. This will only accelerate in all new domains, vertical markets going forward. I'm not saying that all the classic organizations will be gone or toast. No, they can reinvent themselves, they can buy, they start, blah, blah, blah. Different ways to do it. But I do believe that at the solution level, at the systemic level, I think, yeah, we are just starting, right? We have seen the transformation of entertainment and travel, right? And finance a bit in the last 20 years, but all the other domains will be disrupted in the next 20 years.
So do you believe that top-down needs to meet bottom-up in some way?
Sorry?
Do you believe that up in the middle?
I lost the first part. Sorry, can you repeat one more time, please? Thank you.
Do you believe that top-down, the systemic level, needs to meet the bottom-up, the ecosystem, and meet in the middle somewhere in order to move forward?
Yeah, it's always both. The instigator is bottom up, always, also historically, but you need the top down convergence and alignment to substantiate it and to boost it and to make it, to keep it human, right? Otherwise it becomes too chaotic, right? It's just, you need the top down piece for the stabilization part, right? The government regulation, right? To stabilize the transition. So we are moving into a world of a new social contract, right? That's also a big topic, I would say. You can talk about basic income or negative tax income or something similar like that, but it goes way beyond that. The new social contract. You also need a way to let people discover their own purpose in life, because a basic income is not sufficient. You have to have meaning. So purpose becomes important. And you have to have anti-discrimination laws. Right? Because yeah, you can have a basic income, but we also have inequality in the educational system, and we have discrimination still in Holland as well. So you have to think about all these components and how at a systemic level, and to create a new social contract in which all these elements play a key role. And then you can have a significant impact on society and on the citizens. And that's already happening too. Yeah. So it's both. Yeah.
Good point. Thank you, Rosina. Last question will be for Mark. If you can try to keep it on time.
I will keep it low. Yuri, I'm very glad to meet you, and I hope we get to have many discussions about many things. I'm in Silicon Valley, and you talk a lot about more human. That's kind of a phrase that you've probably used 100 times in this talk. And so it's a real issue of what does that mean? So Maslow has a hierarchy, Yuri has a hierarchy. There is Yuri's hierarchy, and humans are at the top, you know, that's what Harari would say, you know, it's all about humanism. And we, you know, we're all in this thing. If you take the moment that we're all in the 100 years we live, or whatever it is, it's all very important. If you take a nature perspective, it is less than a tiny blip of a blip of a blip of a blip. So my question is, you want to talk about human evolution. I see human evolution as becoming a symbiosis, that the person, the human, is becoming a symbiosis with the technology, becoming symbiotic, like the stuff in our gut. And so I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Well, I used to be more enthusiastic about it. I was also involved with Quantified Self Europe in Amsterdam as a co-founder, organizer since 10 years ago with Kevin Kelly, Gary Wolf, right, the founders in your valley. So that was amazing. I was more into transhumanism, let's say 15 years ago until, let's say, 5 years ago. I changed my mind a bit. I think there's value there. If it's a living technology and organic and right, it's a clear use case. And by the way, we are already cyborgs because we have glasses and implants and cochlear implants, and so that makes there's no discussion there. But I do believe that if we embrace technology, then technology also can define us too much, right? So I think we have to be careful of how we integrate technology into our lives, minds, bodies. And I also believe there are organic ways to make our life more healthy, or let's say productive. I'm talking about self-healing, right? Via meditation, you can talk to yourselves. Now you can believe this stuff or not, but a lot of stuff is now about confirmed even by nature and science in the last few years, right? So you can hack your immune system by thoughts, for example. Now this will flourish. I expect that there will be a lot of innovation, organic, natural innovations to improve ourselves, right? To think bigger, maybe go multidimensional. I don't know. I think there's something there, but it's a combination of technology and human augmentation plus advanced, emerging natural ways to redefine and heal ourselves.
So what you embrace is the natural human more than anything else. Is that true? But that's a choice, right?
Yeah, it's a choice. I used to be very about all these gadgets, right, and all these Apple boys and all, right, and chips or whatever in RFID. But okay, it's useful, but it's also a way when you lose your intuitive capabilities to a certain degree. You can also, what I see right now, I use technology to calibrate myself as a baseline, to learn, to know myself, and then learn it in an organic way. Yes. So it's first technology and then organic, intuitive.
Do you see humans as a blip in cosmic history?
I always say, like Stuart Brand, one of my heroes, nature bets last. Nature bets last. So we are just, nature doesn't care about us. It always wins, right? In the end. So I think we are a special animal, right? Maybe something beyond that. I don't know. I think we are a light being. That's my personal experience also. I think we are connected via light across space and time. I know that's true because of some unique experiences I've had with my parents and my brother that cannot be explained rationally. So I think there's a lot of stuff will be discovered in terms of how we are connected at a deeper level that we didn't realize.
Forward to discussing it. Thank you.
More than happy to do so. I see you're mute. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Yuri. We're a few minutes past the hour, and I want to thank you for your generosity. It's just a pleasure to hear you. It's just always a pleasure to hear you, Yuri. We could take the whole afternoon and brainstorm and talk about the future. Just on behalf of everyone here, thank you for the time. We're going to be connecting through the different channels. We're going to put your music next time. And just thank you again, Yuri. It's very, very nice to have you here, and we'll keep in touch.
We will. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Keep in touch.